I came across an interesting article a little while ago. It's titled, "The Reason Why Many Ultra-Rich People Aren't Satisfied with Their Wealth." It caught my attention and I wanted to break down my thoughts on the topic because at first it looked like a first world problem, first world rich person problem, and then I kind of thought about it and it will probably be applicable to a lot of people who are trying to build their wealth. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Reece and today I'm going to be breaking down my thoughts, kind of reacting and going through an article written by The Atlantic. Let's get into it. So here we are, the reason many ultra-rich people aren't satisfied with their wealth. So it starts off by stating as more people basically build their wealth here, there is going to be more people who fall into the category of people being able to buy whatever they want. But then it kind of turns here and it starts diving into the what happens at that point where you don't really need any more money. You can technically buy everything you need. What motivates people to continue building wealth? So after speaking with some experts, the writer of the article came up with two questions. And the first being that, am I doing better than I was before? This is a direct question about self-reflection. Do I meet the social standards of society? Am I actually achieving goals that I've set for myself? Am I every day taking a step forward? The whole concept of never having enough is right there, because realistically, if you've achieved something, why would it be enough? Why do you need to stop? Why can't you keep going? So it's a good question to ask. The second, and I think this is more important to ask, is, am I doing better than other people? This question, this is a dangerous question because the way people interpret how they basically compare themselves to others, it can be very, very dangerous. The mentality surrounding this question can be very dangerous in how you apply it, because what stems from this is jealousy, what stems from this is greed, and what the outcome is generally unhappiness. Why? Because those things don't make people happy. How would I know? I know people who have fallen into this trap and I myself am actively trying to avoid it. I know very wealthy people and I'm very happy for them, because being jealous of their achievements is not going to make me any better. It's not going to put me in a better position. Very good questions to ask, and we're going to dive into them a little bit later in the video. One thing I do want to touch on before I move on though is what they say after, which is this here. This applies to wealth, but also attractiveness, height, and other things that people fret about. It's not necessarily just about finance. I'm talking about finance in this video, but it's definitely important to understand that this is applicable to everything. Am I doing better than them in every aspect, whether it be physical attraction, physical fitness levels, just general competency at social skills? You could apply it to anything. And what could stem from that is jealousy, depending on how you feel about those people and their achievements. On the contrary, those people as well probably have their own insecurities. Those people as well probably are struggling in their own way. And then coming out of those questions, they kind of dive into the more important component of the question. And that is, it's kind of impossible to tell. You're not going to know every single thing about another person. If we hone in on something specific, like they say here in the conversation or in the article, they say, so if you want to be a good parent, it's a little hard to know if you're being a better parent now than you were a year ago. And it's also hard to know if you're being a better parent than the neighbors, which is absolutely correct, because what you see is not necessarily what you get. You might see someone being a fantastic parent in the backyard, but they might be neglecting their kid inside. And at the end of the day, what does it matter? Because you should be focusing on being the best parent you possibly can be, not what your neighbor Joe Blow is doing. It's a very simple analogy. It's a very simple concept to understand. And this can now be applied to everything, particularly money, as it is one of the most, in my opinion, especially in Australia, is one of the most compared to things. Like, people want to know these things about others. Might be a bit intrusive to ask, but I know people who definitely do ask these questions, I myself being guilty, and it can be a dangerous and slippery slope. The article then moves on to basically quantify these questions, to actually put dimensions and parameters around how you would compare yourself in the real world to people or yourself. So the three questions coming out of this as just clear, simple examples are, Am I making more money? Does my house have more square feet? Or do I have more houses than I used to? And this is super important to kind of understand that, again, in that world where you are luxuriously enough to have these nice things, whether it be houses, cars, whatever it is, it doesn't matter if you're in a position of being fortunate enough. It can go right down to something so simple as having the nicest iPhone. Realistically, these questions that you would definitely conjure in your own way. It might not necessarily be at the level of owning multiple houses, but just understanding that this type of comparison can be dangerous, and this type of mentality can be dangerous for your own mental health. It's very important, and what they touch on is really fantastic in this article, because I myself saw myself falling into this category. I myself found that I was doing these comparisons and I was aware of it, but I wasn't really thinking about it. Every time I do, I go, I probably shouldn't think that way. It's probably a little bit toxic, but now I'm definitely more aware of it based on my exposure to content like this, that has made me take a step back and realize that it doesn't matter that much as long as the steps that I'm taking are allowing me to live a good life. Money is not the answer. It's something that gets pushed around a lot as you need money to succeed. And I don't necessarily think that's true. I think that you need money to basically give yourself the greatest ability to build a happy life. Then the article moves on. And where we now move into is the world of where they actually interviewed rich people who, in this paragraph here, they basically talk about a family who had amassed a whopping $50 million, which is a large sum of money, I would say. And basically if they moved to a neighborhood where families had more than them, they would be looked at as inferior, even though they would fall into the top of the 1% in the entire world's wealth, purely based on the fact that it's completely up to the societal standards of where they would be moving to that would cause them this unhappiness. They could move technically to a very normal suburb somewhere where they were living and live the most luxurious lifestyle. They'd be the richest people on the street. But if they were to move into this rich neighborhood, they would be looked at as the poor people of the street. And it's just fascinating to me how these people who are very wealthy, this article interviewed real people and collected real information from actual wealthy people. The fact that they think this way is just mind-boggling. And how could we understand this? I have nowhere near that kind of wealth. How could I possibly feel bad for someone who has a fortune of $50 million? But I understand the mindset going into it that, yes, I might not sympathize with them because they have $50 million. You could do whatever you want with that kind of money. I still understand the expectation from them in their own little world to do better, because I myself fall into that category. And this is where it gets very interesting. The person who wrote the article kind of asked where he got the people to answer these questions. Who were these millionaires and where did they come from? And what were the questions asked to them? And one of them coming out of it again was, if you have millions of dollars and your happiness level isn't a 10, what amount of money would you need to get to that level 10? And it's really funny because most of them, based on what the article says, most of them said that at least 2 to 3 times that amount is what they would require to hit that level of happiness. Now, can you see how this could be that slippery slope? Because if you just handed them that 2 to 3 times amount, would they then go, okay, I'm done. My happiness level is a 10. Everything's great. La-di-da. Probably not, because people are greedy. People don't understand that what they have allows them to build a happy and fulfilling life. Even myself, like I say, I fall into this trap often. And it's just so fascinating to me. This article is so fascinating because as someone who looks at these people who are so wealthy, yet unhappy with their lives, it goes to show that money doesn't buy happiness. It goes to show that what you do with your money to allow yourself to build a happy life is what matters most. The article then goes on to even step further out of the territory that I'm equipped to have a conversation about, because realistically it talks about people with amounts of wealth that I just can't even comprehend at this point in my life. And where we go into this conversation is that there are different motivations behind people who want to accumulate wealth. In this instance, they go to two different types of people. People like myself who earn a salary, who does something with that money to then continue building my wealth slowly. I have to earn a paycheck to be able to spend my money, to be able to then build, to invest it or buy new things. Versus the mega wealthy who can basically gobble up assets, can obtain items that other people can't obtain, and the thrill that comes from that is the thing that makes them happy, being able to spend that amount of money to buy things that are unattainable for most people. And this is where I'm going to jump back into the article and highlight these two questions, where I think laterally, I think like this. I think, do I have enough to buy this expensive thing that I want? Being a reflection of someone who earns a salary, it's I have to figure out, do I have enough to buy this thing? Whereas the mega wealthy go, do I have as much or more than these people I'm comparing myself with? Meaning, what do I need to buy to be better than them? Their focus and their drive isn't on acquiring the object. It's about acquiring more objects to elevate their status. And it's just it's a slippery slope, because I can't possibly see how the payoff is ever going to bring them happiness. It just makes sense. This article, the way it's broken down, it just makes sense that from their perspective, they kind of do it to themselves. And I could see myself falling victim to this if I wasn't aware of it. It's something that as my life has changed and evolved over the years, still being quite young, I believe I'm quite young, I'm only 26, I absolutely can see how this is such a dangerous mindset to have, and I'm aware of it now, and I think I've matured a little bit as I've started to earn more money, and I'm now putting that knowledge into practice by not getting consumed by materialistic objects, or realistically trying to outcompete with others. And then the outcome from this research was basically depressing, because what they found was that these ultra wealthy people weren't necessarily trying to build their happiness. They were trying to outcompete their competitors. The people that they were friends with, it wasn't about being mates and basically reminiscing in the fact that they never have to do anything with their life again. They're happy. They can just do whatever they want. They can lounge around the pool and eat caviar every day if they want, and it never be a problem. Instead, they were unhappy with their lives because they were in constant competition with their mates, whether it be owning things that were expensive, building status by donating more than the other person, or literally just trying to keep their wealth. The pressures and stresses on living that lifestyle basically consumed them to the point that they were unhappy. And this is something that can definitely be tied down to people, even at my own level and below. Not that it's a comparison thing, it's just that you see it in everyday life. You see people trying to outcompete others, family members trying to outcompete other family members. And why this can be dangerous is purely because they are the people who will try their hardest to consume you and get you involved in that argument, with the outcome being you and them both being miserable. I've seen it with friends of my own, I've seen it with family members, I've seen it with other people's family members, and I have only been limited to a certain number of people who have had these experiences. I think the key takeaways from this is that here's the world's smallest violin for rich people. You're rich, be happy with your life, but the mentality surrounding wealth and money should not be about obtaining more, consuming more, outcompeting others. It should be about using it and utilizing it in the best way possible to live a happy and fulfilling lifestyle. That's my preach. That's my rant. I really like the article. Definitely check it out if it's something that you want to read. I have left a link down in the description below. Overall, I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. I know that this one was a little bit different. Me reacting to an article is not something that I don't think I've ever done on this channel, so that was a first for me. If there are any others that you come across that you think are worth having a read into, please link them down below. I would be interested in having a read myself and potentially reacting to them in the future. With that being said, I'm going to leave it there. Enjoy your day, enjoy your week. Goodbye for now.